Allen Company and Big Al will be at the I-80 Truckers Jamboree. See you there.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Scott Thompson.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Scott here, just filling in for host Mark Reddick for a couple more days. In just a moment, we're going to break down some big news out of the White House related to California's strict, controversial, and ambitious emission standards. After that, OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs Jay Grimes will bust out his report card and grade how the Trump administration is doing in its bid to roll back unnecessary regulations. Then we'll talk crash preventability, the way in which FMCSA rates crashes can have a big impact on your operation. David Grimes and Alex Clark of CDL Legal break that process down for us and explain how all of it makes truckers' safety scores more accurate. And finally, an infamous truck-eating bridge in Kansas City, Missouri is getting a makeover with 4 new murals. And it's not just about aesthetics. One of the artists who worked on the project, Mike Elder, explains how it all came together. So lots to get to today. But first, that big news out of D.C. with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Scott. We have some news out of the Golden State in regards to vehicle emissions standards. Tyson Fisher with Landline Magazine joins me to give us an update. Tyson, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Good. I'm glad you're here. This is an interesting topic when it comes to electric vehicles. California's kind of led the charge a bit on this, but what's going on right now?
Yeah, well, California has to lead the charge because they're the only state in the nation that is allowed to set stricter vehicle emissions that are stricter than the federal regulations. They're able to do that through the Clean Air Act. And the way they're able to do that is by, if they want to set the stricter vehicle emissions standards, they have to get a waiver from the EPA. They've been doing that since the 70s, more than 100. The latest, or by far the strictest vehicle emissions they've ever had, very controversial, is Advanced Clean Cars 2 and Advanced Clean Trucks and the Omnibus Low NOx regulations, which, kind of make it simple. It's been referred to as the electric vehicle mandate in California. As far as trucking is concerned, it would require 40% of all new truck sales, sales of new trucks, to be zero-emission trucks by, I believe, model year 2032. Obviously, that's unachievable for so many reasons, at least for Class 7 and 8 trucks. It's just the technology just isn't there. For lower, like Class 4 or 5, you can make an argument. Class 7 and 8 certainly can't. 10 other states have adopted these rules, and it has caused a lot of controversy in those states, especially New York was a big one. And a lot of those states have kind of walked back some of those regulations, saying, we will pause this for 2 years because we can't do it. So doesn't matter anymore because, as you mentioned, Trump, signed 3 Congressional Review Act resolutions that effectively kills all of those bills, and these electric vehicle mandates in California are no longer enforceable.
Now, in the trucking world, is that a good thing, bad thing? It's not over.
Yes.
We can say that.
Yeah, for sure. So, you asked the trucking industry. This is a great thing. Absolutely, because they now, in those 10 states that were affected by this, they now have the option to buy diesel trucks without any restrictions. In the states that did do that, there was some manufacturers were requiring dealerships to sell 1 electric truck before they can order 13 diesel trucks, so a 1-to-13 ratio. The problem is no one could sell a single Class 8 electric truck, and so it caused this issue to where if you were in one of those states that adopted advanced clean trucks, you could not buy a diesel truck. So obviously the trucking industry is loving this because they can now buy the diesel trucks that are absolutely necessary for at least long haul operations and most regional operations. You just can't use electric trucks for these longer operations. That's no longer an issue. But yeah, you also mentioned this, kind of like, don't get your hopes up necessarily, because this absolutely is going to be challenged in the courtroom. And California has already indicated that that's exactly what they're going to do. As a matter of fact, when Congress passed this, I believe it was in the end of May, California, popped out a press release immediately saying, "Yeah, we're going to take you to courts." I think they were waiting for the president to sign these resolutions before filing that. So we haven't seen that being filed yet. But I mean, it's a matter of when, not if, that's going to happen. But it really comes down to the method by which the Trump administration decided to eliminate these new rules in California, which is through the Congressional Review Act. And I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds because it gets boring and complicated. Yeah. But the bottom line is that the way that this works is that the Congress can review rules that that agencies set. This being one of them. And then if Congress, by a simple majority, passes these resolutions, what it does is it prohibits California from trying to put a new similar rule in the future. So basically, California can't have a second bite at this apple and try to do it again with, let's say, Democrats win the White House in 2028. They say, all right, we have a Democrat, administration. We're going to do advanced clean trucks again. Through the Congressional Review Act says you cannot do that. You cannot pass something that's substantially same in form. And so it permanently kills that. And so it's a huge deal. The problem is both the Government Accountability Office and the Senate Parliamentarian, both of them have determined that these EPA waivers, that essentially is what is being reversed, are not susceptible to the Congressional Review Act. Despite that, both the Republicans in the House and the Senate said, yeah, we're going to do it anyway. Because the Government Accountability Office and the Senate Parliamentarian, although they are, nonpartisan, independent bodies of the federal government, they don't have any real authority, I guess you can say. Like what they say isn't rubber stamped. It's like, now it's law. You can't do this. It's more of opinions, I guess you can say, opinions or advice, however you want to say it. And Republicans said, yeah, that's your opinion, and we disagree, and we're gonna run with this. And they did, and it passed, and here we are. So, but you can bet that that's going to be the basis of California's lawsuit. How that will end, we will wait and see. But I mean, that's the thing. Look forward to probably a lengthy court battle. There might be some injunctions here that might pause it for a little bit and then get reversed. I mean, so many different ways that this can go. But the bottom line is, let's go ahead and celebrate now, because right now, this electric vehicle mandate California it's dead. Yeah.
Now, is it dead for just California or other states as well?
All the states. So what this effectively does is that it kills the EPA waiver that allows California to adopt it. So California has to adopt it first. From there, any states can adopt a similar rule to California's same rules, which, by the way, 10 states have already done with advanced clean trucks. But if California doesn't have that EPA waiver, and therefore it can't implement these rules, it trickles down, nobody else. So, So the short answer to your question is, this is a nationwide lift of the electric vehicle mandate. Yeah.
For right now.
For now. That's the key. So I will be watching this court case closely, because, again, it will be lengthy, probably, and it might be back and forth. But it's certainly, Newsom and Trump, I don't know if you noticed, not good friends right now. Yeah. And so there's going to be a lot of headlines being going out between this battle between the two. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you covering that for us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me again.
If you'd like to read Tyson's work, you can visit landline.media. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. It's worth remembering that the California emission rule is just one of many regulations throughout the country that the Trump administration is hoping to roll back. They've got ambitious goals on that front, and we were curious about where that process stands right now. So we reached out to someone who keeps track of such things, Jay Grimes of OIDA's Washington, D.C. office. He's going to join us after the break to break down where the administration stands with regard to regulatory reform and how it might impact you. After that, we'll talk crash preventability and then truck eating bridges. So lots more show coming your way. Hang tight. More Landline Now is right around the corner.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
High heat and low lubricity can break your diesel fuel down fast. Summer driving means crowded roads, more stress, dust, and a bigger risk of costly engine damage. Howe's Diesel Defender protects from the inside out, cleaning, lubricating, and fighting injector wear. Visit howsproducts.com.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
For some time now, we've been talking about the administration's promises of regulatory reform and, in some cases, regulatory rollbacks. So how are they doing? Welcome back to Landline Now. This is Regulatory Roundup, and I'm Mark Rettig. I'm joined, as always, by OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Jay, how are you doing?
Doing well, Mark. Great to be back.
Glad to have you with us, and I think let's just start out with what I think has got to be the hottest issue in trucking right now. It's certainly based on the calls that we're getting here at OOIDA headquarters from truckers, and that is the requirement for English proficiency. Before we get into the current events here, just for those who are unaware or maybe haven't run into it, what is the existing regulation that's been on the books for some time?
Yeah, there are regulations in the Federal Motor Carrier Safety regulations that in order to be deemed a qualified driver, you've got to read and understand traffic signs, be able to communicate with traffic safety emergency personnel sufficiently in English. Those regulations have been on the books for decades, and for a number of years, we're part of the CVSA's out-of-service criteria. Now, back in 2015, 2016, CVSA voted to remove the English language proficiency violations from the out-of-service criteria. FMCSA then formalized CVSA's actions, sent out kind of an enforcement bulletin removing that regulation and the violation from out-of-service criteria. And kind of in that 10-year period, we've seen enforcement of English language proficiency really drop off quite precipitously. Back in 2013, 2014, there was over 100,000 violations reported at roadside. Last couple of years, those numbers are like 8,000 to 10,000. So enforcement of this has dropped off. I think prioritizing enforcement has dropped off, and that's really, I think, it's been a questionable safety decision. And I think because of that, because of the industry support for restoring it in the out-of-service criteria, the administration, the Department of Transportation took action earlier this year through an executive order, through other DOT actions, to formally restore English language proficiency violations back into the out-of-service criteria. CVSA has since adopted some formal actions to do that, and we are expecting that to formally take place here. A couple of weeks, June 25th is the date that we've heard from CVSA where it will officially be back in the OOS, the out-of-service. As an out-of-service violations, FMCSA has issued some updated guidance, kind of letting law enforcement know what actions they should take when pulling a driver over roadside, and some questions they can ask, and kind of an interview process, and a kind of going over some highway signs to better determine English proficiency if they run into an individual who they think is not in compliance with the regulation. I think this has been the most significant action we have seen from the administration, from DOT so far in terms of trucking regulatory reform. But I think it highlights a priority that we expected, that they've talked about since even before taking office in January. was regulatory reform, more common sense, cost-effective regulations. I think this executive order on English language proficiency is an example of that. And we've seen some more actions too, I think, reassuring drivers that more is on the way. But I think 5 months in, I think we've seen some substantive signs that the new DOT under the leadership of Secretary Duffy is going to be committed to looking and re-examining some regulations that have been on the books, and some that maybe need to be changed, and some that outright need to be repealed.
You mentioned some of the things that they're going to do in terms of determining who has proficiency or not, and I think it's important to note for people something that Todd Spencer said, which is, we're not asking people to memorize the Encyclopedia Britannica. This really is just having a basic proficiency in English, right?
Exactly. So being able to understand the road signs that are on the highways and throughout the country. So you can understand when a road is safe or if it's not safe. Being able to understand with a law enforcement officer, roadsides. You can maybe understand what's wrong with the vehicle, what needs to be updated, what needs to be corrected, and if emergency personnel is on the scene of an accident, that you can communicate with them. And exactly as OIDA President Todd Spencer has emphasized, and this is 100% a safety issue, safety concern. And it's not about reciting an encyclopedia. It's really to have that basic understanding of being able to operate safely on the road and being a qualified driver, to ensure safety for everyone on the road. So we've been supportive of restoring these violations into the out-of-service criteria. Been working with DOT, FMCSA, CVSA, as well as our members, and kind of figuring out how this is going to work, what's going to change on June 25th, and believe it's a critical first step. But it also goes hand in hand with improving driver training, improving and streamlining licensing protocols, so we can make sure from the very start that unqualified drivers are never licensed or signed off from a training provider if they don't have the right skills and the right proficiencies to be able to operate a commercial motor vehicle safely. So again, I think we viewed this as a common sense first start, but there's a whole lot of other things that need to change from the general training requirements, improving entry-level driver training, making sure that these states are issuing CDLs to individuals that meet the requirements, meet the provisions, and eliminating a lot of loopholes that we see from different states in terms of how they are issuing CDLs, especially this escalating issuance of non-domiciled CDLs that seems to be a patchwork depending on which state driver licensing agency is where you're trying to apply for your non-domiciled CDL. It seems like each state does a little bit differently. A lot of states, some states may be issuing non-domiciled CDLs at a much more frequent rate. And this was another aspect of the president's executive order, was really to review the issuance of non-domiciled CDLs for one, and then also looking at credentialing overall and figuring out where we can make some across-the-board improvements there too. Again, it all goes back to safety.
Well, in the meantime, while all this is going on, there's other regulatory reduction or rollback actions taking place. The DOT came out with a list of something like 50 proposals for reducing the regulatory burden on industries. Do we know of those how many are trucking regulations that they're looking at?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, and this was really, I think, the first batch of some deregulatory actions that DOT is going to take when it comes to different trucking regulations. And I think across Federal Highway Administration, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and FMCSA, 52 total regulations. On FMCSA, there were specifically 20, and I think one we've been particularly vocal on is a proposal that we are welcoming to remove the requirement that rear impact guards must be permanently marked or labeled with a certification from the manufacturer. And this has been a regulation. It's really a federal motor vehicle safety standard that when a new rear impact guard goes on a truck, it's got to have a label on the back that says it meets the requirement. Of course, over time, when the truck gets on the road, these labels can get damaged, wear and tear, and can no longer be read, but it really doesn't impact the safety performance of that rear guard. And we've seen just too many instances of where motor carriers get cited for a violation of this regulation, where it really, again, has no connection to safety. We've been working with CVSA and even ATA on this one to remove this violation that, again, we don't think has any connection to safety. And now we're seeing FMCSA formally propose to remove that requirement. And a number of, I think, other regulations that FMCSA proposed in this batch that kind of have that same tone of removing violations that have no connection to safety. And again, about 20 different trucking-related regulatory provisions. ELD operator's manual, removing the requirement that you've got to have a physical copy of this manual in your truck or you're going to be out of compliance. Quite a host of others. I think mostly these are small issues, looking at tire load markings, spare fuses, vision standards, and a grandfathering provision there. But I think indicates that new folks at DOT really want to make some regulatory changes that either outright eliminate some of these obsolete regulations or repeal regulations that have no connection to safety whatsoever. So I think this announcement that we saw a few weeks ago is, again, I think another common sense action from DOT, FMCSA, FHWA, and NHTSA here. And I think it's a promising sign and hopeful that we're going to see some more major items come through here as leadership in these different agencies begins to go through. We're still in a period where we're waiting for nominees at a lot of these different agencies to go through the Senate confirmation process. But we do know the nominees, and including the nominee for FMCSA Administrator, Mr. Derek Bars.
Something you said in there that I think is worth exploring just a little bit. We only have a couple of minutes left, Jay, but you said several times safety. Do these things help safety? And I kind of think some people, we use that word so often that they kind of forget what we're really talking about here is, does not having a label on your ICC bumper make you more likely to have an accident or to cause one? Does not having an ELD manual in your glove box make you more likely to cause an accident? And that's the real root of safety. And a lot of this stuff, obviously, there's a smell test here, a common sense test. These things obviously are not making it more likely for the trucker to take part in or cause an accident.
Exactly. And this really comes down to what we think for far too long has been a misguided focus and incentive on compliance rather than safety performance. And there's just so many hundreds and thousands of different violations that a driver or motor carrier can be dinged for that are really have no impact on their safety performance, aren't going to increase any crash risk. And we think FMCSA DOT needs to do a much better job of prioritizing the violations that we know are going to be more likely to result in a crash, and make sure that the carriers that are in violation for those are being targeted, that there's strict penalties if you're involved in these practices that are more likely to lead to a crash. A lot of these violations that are on the books do not have any connection to safety whatsoever, and we're going to be supportive of removing, updating those. And I think these 20 regulations that FMCSA put out in this notice here earlier this last month are a great example, and I think hopefully, again, a promising sign of things to come, because we know there's a lot more to take care of.
Okay. Well, Jay, great information. Thank you very much. We're out of time, but appreciate you joining us.
All right. We'll see you next time.
I've been talking with Jay Grimes of OOIDA. Landline Now will be back in a moment.
At Truck Stop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
Landline Now. Welcome back. When is a crash preventable and when is it not? It's not just an academic question, because how the FMCSA rates that crash can have a huge impact on you, your life, and your operation. In August of 2017, the FMCSA started to review crashes submitted by truck and bus companies to determine whether the crashes could have been prevented. 2 years later, the agency proposed making that program permanent, and in late 2024, the agency expanded the types of crashes covered. To discuss what that expansion entailed, as well as some other topics, I talked with David Grimes and Alex Clark of CDL Legal. Well, guys, FMCSA has come out with new guidelines for non-preventable crashes, and I thought we might want to start with what were the previous guidelines? What kind of crashes were listed as non-preventable before this change?
So there was a really strict list about non-preventable. And when we're talking about non-preventability, what the DOT defines as non-preventability is a very short list of very specific types of crashes. Not what we would think of like, oh, I wasn't at fault. That guy like merged weird and ran into me, or he pulled out, and I couldn't have seen him because he was in my blind spot. All of those determinations of who's at fault or what was going on, those are usually done for the purposes of insurance and possibly a ticket. But this non-preventability program that the DOT has is all geared towards adjusting the carrier safety score when a truck is involved. And so they have these very specific guidelines. The old guidelines, like I said, were very strict, and they had to do with if there was something like a motorist who didn't stop in traffic or blew through a light, if there was a motorist who crossed all the way into oncoming traffic. And I say all the way because if one tire was still over that double line, it did not count. If a driver was drunk and you could prove it, not just, oh, they seemed drunk or they admitted that they were drunk, but if there was a test that was given at the time, things like that.
Now, they have made these changes, and we should note for folks, these have been in place for a little while now, I guess a few months. What has been added or changed within those guidelines now?
Well, you said that they have been in place for a few months, and what's important about that is that any crashes that happened since the beginning of last December 2024, are eligible for these new expanded definitions. Any crashes that happened before December of last year, anything November 2024 and before that, are not eligible. So that's where they drew the line. But these new ones may seem kind of innocuous or maybe obvious, but they weren't there before. And the FMCSA was getting a ton of negative feedback from carriers and from drivers saying, hey, like this really should count as non-preventable. There was nothing my driver could do about this. There are only 4 of them. And the 4 additions are the CMV was struck on the side by a motorist operating in the same direction. This is usually a bad merge. Somebody is coming across, not looking where they're going, and they hit the truck somewhere along the length of the truck. The second one is the CMV was struck because a motorist was entering the roadway from a private driveway or parking lot. So believe it or not, that wasn't covered before. If you were coming and someone was coming in the opposite direction from a road and they hit you, okay. But if they were coming out of a parking lot, it didn't count. Number 3 is that CMV was struck because another motorist lost control of their vehicle. So there were specific definitions in the prior list for reasons that they might have lost control. But this is more general and just covers, it doesn't require as much burden of proof. And then the last one is actually all about burden of proof. It says any other type of crash involving a CMV where video demonstrates the sequence of events of the crash. So this is one of those instances where people were saying, hey, I have video showing that this should qualify for non-preventability. But what the FMCSA was saying prior to this change is we only accept what we see on the police accident report. So people were saying, well, a police officer shows up 10 minutes later, he makes an assessment based on what he sees and what he thinks is what happened. But I have video that shows that this happened instead. How can I prove that to you, FMCSA? And so that's why they made this change, is they wanted to expand that a little bit and give these drivers this outlet, and the carriers, the outlet to say, hey, I do have proof. It is legitimate. Here's what it shows.
Well, that seems like a lot of common sense, but especially that last one. So if you went to FMCSA with video before, they might not make any adjustment in your safety score because of that, right?
That's absolutely right. And it is a huge win for carriers to have this outlet now. It's definitely one of those steps that we've been wanting to see for a long time. So just know, again, it only applies to crashes that happened from the beginning of December 2024 forward. So if there's an older crash that you're like, oh, finally, now I can come back and tell that FMCSA guy where to put it because I've got this video that I can show him now. No, I'm sorry, you can't. It has to be those more recent ones. But now going forward, all the carriers and the drivers have this outlet and these expanded definitions that they can use to get some relief on their safety score.
So I'm wondering if you can walk us briefly through the process. When you talk about getting these listed as non-preventable, it's not automatic. You've got to go to FMCSA. What's the procedure you have to follow in order to get that listed that way?
Yeah. So you're still going to want a copy of the police accident report and video if you have it. And you're going to want to look at the list of definitions. You can Google, non-preventable crashes, FMCSA, and you should be able to pull up a list of all the different definitions. And if you think that what you have in the police accident report or the video fits into one of those definitions, then you can go on the FMCSA's data queue portal, which, again, if you just Google data queue, anyone can have access to it. You have to sign up for a little account, but it's free. Everyone has access. And follow the steps, put in your information, and send it off. Now, crash data queues do take a really long time to process, sometimes up to 3 months. So it's not something that happens very quickly. But someone at the DOT will review your data queue challenge about the crash. And if they think that it does fit the non-preventability, then they'll make that change. But like you said, Mark, it doesn't happen automatically. No one can do this for you. Crashes will always come onto your score as preventable, which is the worst version of points and impact on your score. You have to go make that change.
It's interesting because we've talked a lot on the program about dash cams. And I've noticed now in looking at videos online that you have people that have not just the forward facing, but also ones that look behind the vehicle to see what's happening back there. This really kind of makes the case for the utility of those, to the importance of having them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we joke a little bit around the office that if we were all behind the wheels of trucks, knowing what we do and sort of seeing the legal knots that people get into, that we would have 16 cameras on every truck that we drove. Because, it's just there's so much that can be gained by having evidence yourself. Now, there's a lot of kind of legal back and forth as to how much recording is too much, and maybe you can get into trouble, but that's another topic. I would say that now that drivers have this ability to present camera footage in their defense, then yes, definitely have that forward-facing camera and a backward-facing camera if you can.
Let's go on to another topic here, and that has to do with the various statuses that you have on your electronic logs. And some folks are having trouble in terms of how things need to be categorized, especially, as you noted in the note that you sent me, the difference between off-duty and sleeper berth. And before we get into that, weren't ELDs supposed to fix all this?
Well, Mark, there's an old saying, garbage in, garbage out, for computers. And I put plenty of garbage in my computer at times. But the point is that they still have to make designations. And they still need to understand what those designations are. And the biggest misunderstanding is between sleeper berth and off-duty. So sleeper berth is specifically when you're resting, when you don't have to necessarily be sleeping, but if your cab is equipped with, it's a condo, it's equipped with a sleeper berth, then you need to be in that place in the truck when you're saying you're in sleeper berth. So if the guy pulls you over and it says sleeper berth on your ELD and you're driving the truck, or even a co-driver sitting beside the driver, we've seen that you think you're resting, but DOT, FMCSA does not think you're resting when you're doing that. So that's one real, that's a very important distinction. You must be in that sleeper berth. You can watch TV, you can read books, you can do all that kind of stuff. Plus you need at least 7 hours of sleeper berth. You can, and then on the other side of that, you can be in off duty. Off duty is when you're completely relieved, kind of like sleeper berth, but you're not sleeping, but you're out of the truck. You're going to play basketball. You're going to eat. You're going to run errands, things like that. But the key though is if you're going to do that, this mild version of split is you need 3 hours consecutively. I believe, of at least three hours of off duty to pair with the sleeper berth, to 7 hours of sleeper berth.
I've always understood it that when you split the sleeper berth, that both of the periods you split have to be in the sleeper berth, that you can have some on-duty time between those two periods, but you do have to be in the sleeper berth on that second part, don't you?
Right. I'm not actually talking about the split sleeper berth. I've just been splitting it up. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going there this time. If you guys want to understand sleeper berth, go to a reputable source and look at the charts and the graphs and the page after page after page explaining it. Can't do that here. What I mean is you can, to satisfy the 10-hour rule, you can use either 7 or 8 hours of sleeper berth, and then at least 2 or 3 hours, depending, to make that 10 in off duty. Okay. And off duty, you can't be fueling, you can't be, doing any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, nothing that advances the business of the motor carrier.
Right. And if you do take the truck to go somewhere, in that using, PC, personal conveyance, you cannot be advancing that truck to the, you gotta either go someplace and go back, or make sure you're not moving forward toward and end up closer to your destination.
Yeah, and I think the main thing to think about when you talk about the ELDs and these various statuses is the only thing the ELD can really tell is the truck is moving, the truck is not. After that, it depends on you.
That's a good point.
Okay. Well, guys, we've run out of time here. I know there's a lot more we could talk about on this topic, but thank you very much for the information.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
I've been talking with David Grimes and Alex Clark of CDL Legal, a legal services provider for the trucking industry, about the addition of more kinds of wrecks that are now included in the Non-Preventable Accident Program at FMCSA. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us through a short commercial break. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Sometimes a bridge is just a bridge, but when a bridge finds itself in the headlines multiple times over multiple years because yet another commercial truck has hit it due to a low 12-foot tall clearance, it gets a bit of a reputation and a nickname. Usually it's called a truck-eating bridge, and this is the story of such a bridge, one that resides on Independence Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. But the city has a plan, which is where artist Mike Elder comes in. Landline Magazine's Ryan Witkowski explains.
The Independence Avenue Bridge, the infamous truck-eating bridge in Missouri and here in Kansas City, according to KCPD, 40 collisions with that bridge since 2020. I know, Mike, it's a little crazy. And so in order to try to draw some a little more awareness to this, kind of beautify the area as well, the Northeast Kansas City Chamber of Commerce has decided to commission murals on 4 sides of that bridge. 15 different artists submitted 39 submissions, and one of those artists chosen was Mike Elder, who joins us now. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. And I guess we'll get it kicked off with just asking you, what kind of made you want to become part of this project?
Oh, man. I've been an artist my whole life, to be honest. And it's kind of a long story, but, I've always seen that bridge. As a kid, we'd drive by and I've seen trucks stuck under it before. So it's been a lifelong thing seeing that bridge. But, I'm just kind of redoing things. I'm kind of reaching back to my artistic side and saw this opportunity to do this mural and thought, man, I'm going to jump on that. So, yeah, that's literally how that happens. It's about how everything in my life happens. It's like, oh, that looks like fun, and there I am.
Well, and I mean, I don't think it's a stretch of the imagination, at least here in Kansas City, to call that thing a landmark, right?
Oh, for sure. And how many people drive under that thing every day? And let's face it, it's ugly. Yeah. It stops trucks, and trucks run into it. But it goes way beyond that. There's people that live in that area. There's people that drive through there every single day. I drive through there all the time. And that bridge is a landmark, but also an eyesore. So this is kind of a nice combination to fix all that.
Indeed. Well, and it's also like a block and a half away from my favorite taco joint in the city. So I'm very excited to know that I get something to look at when I go get tacos. Talk a little about your connection with trucking, because you had mentioned that to me, how you had a bit of a connection with the trucking industry already.
Yeah, I actually worked, almost a decade, I'd say, total in the trucking industry. I sold oil and tires to big trucking companies, and then later truck parts, heavy duty truck parts. And besides that, I've got buddies that are truck drivers and stuff. I think I have a buddy that drives past that every day on his way to work to drive a truck, knowing full well not to try to go under it. So
safe to say there may be a little empathy at play here as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. I mean, trucking companies always have issues with, stuff like this. And it's something that costs them a lot of money. It's kind of fun to do something that's not necessarily going to stop anybody from driving under the bridge. But at least if they do, they'll have something to look at while they're waiting to get towed out.
Well, Mike Elder is joining us. He's one of the artists that's been commissioned to paint one of the 4 sides at the Independence Avenue truck-eating bridge. And Mike, let's talk a little bit about the actual design that you submitted, because I really, really like your design. It's a big monster truck's got cargo flying out the back, and all of that cargo is like Kansas City themed kind of cargo. It's like KC Easter eggs for you to find in the mural.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea is people drive by and people walk by that wall. The design is pretty literal. I mean, it's a monster living under the bridge. I kind of always think of any bridge as having like a troll living under it kind of a thing. That was kind of a thing growing up. We always thought there was a troll under bridges. And so anyhow, this is the troll that is basically the spirit of that bridge, and with his big frog-like tongue sucking trucks in. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's meant to be fun. There is a lot of, and there will be more. That's a big wall. It's kind of fun and easy to hide small things in it. But definitely a lot of different nods to different aspects of Kansas City. The bridge is, to me, synonymous with part of Kansas City, and I just wanted to throw in as many little things that kind of remind me of Kansas City. And there's a few nods to all sorts of things.
Yeah, I like the fact that it seems like one of those pieces of art that I'm going to have to see a whole bunch of times before I really ingest all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was about those little traffic cones you had in there too, but those were one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, and I've been having dreams about those guys. So they're going to change a little bit. And I don't know if you noticed, but they're like I don't know. I kind of had this idea that all came in later after I had the bridge drawn and the troll and all that other stuff. This idea of like somebody trying to sabotage the whole not driving under the bridge. So you have these kind of evil traffic cones, and there's a UFO kind of beaming up the signs. And and I was thinking about having one of those. You must be this tall to ride this ride, and have one of those traffic cones,
Oh, I'm here for that, man. I'm here for that. Well, talk to me about working in a space like that too, because I'm assuming you've done murals of this magnitude before, but never in like that busy of an area, right?
You know what, man? This is my first real mural, to be honest. I mean,
Wow.
I've always been so and I got awarded the biggest wall. So it's one of those teach yourself.
No pressure, huh?
Yeah, man, nothing at all. But I love that sort of thing. And that I own storage units here on my farm, and a few of them have concrete walls. So I've been kind of going through and basically, I mean, this sounds ridiculous because they've hired me to do this wall, but I'm teaching myself how to use rattle cans and teaching myself. And no joke, man, I probably shouldn't even admit this. I should totally make up a better story, but I had never held one of the graffiti style rattle cans in my hand ever until maybe, a week or two ago. Yeah.
Oh, so it's going to be a make or break moment for you is what you're telling me. All right. Well, no pressure on that,
I'm
man.
confident. I know how to paint. I used to teach airbrush classes.
Sure.
So I know how to paint, and I know how to, and I spray cars, and I've done large pieces of artwork using spray guns, just never rattle cans and never on a huge wall like that.
Sure.
So I'm definitely learning as I go.
And never with the eyes of the city on you.
Yeah. How many cars driving by all day
we're
long?
all watching, Mike. I don't know if that puts pressure.
I've literally had people email me asking if they can get my schedule so that they can go down and watch me paint. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't post a schedule. That way I don't end up
Not
with a
at
crowd.
all, man. Not at all. Well, last week was when they actually announced the artists that were awarded. Talk to me a little bit about that excitement of just being selected among, a lot of very talented artists.
Yeah, and when I went down there, they had like a walkthrough, and when I went down there was some artists that I recognized, some sidewalk artists and some really talented people. And so I went there with a friend, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm getting this gig. And so did the artwork, did the submission, sent it in, and man, to be picked and to get the biggest wall out of all of them, it was a real humbling experience. I was real excited and then really terrified. It's like, holy crap, now I actually have to do this. So, yeah.
Well, especially for someone who's never held a rattle can before.
Yeah, man. I mean,
you should let all the other artists know that too, man. I'm sure they find that.
Somebody asked me while I was at the dinner, there was a luncheon with all the artists. They're like, what's your tag name? And I'm like, tag name?
You haven't even gotten that far yet, man. Well, hopefully you figure one out because the work's expected to start after the holiday weekend, completion in early August. So I'm looking forward to seeing these things, man. They're going to be a real treat for the city. And as you mentioned, now the truckers that get stuck under the bridge, they'll at least have something to look at while they're waiting to get towed off.
Absolutely. And the tow truck companies and the police. So, we're satisfying a lot of needs here.
Yeah. Suddenly the photos that are going to come from these accidents actually are going to be a little more eye-pleasing.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot more interesting. Mm-hmm.
Well, sure. Mike, we appreciate the time today, man, and I look forward to following up with you when this artist is done, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate you too, man.
Our thanks to Mike Elder for taking some time to speak with us about the project. The Independence Avenue Bridge has become something of a local celebrity. It's got its own Facebook page and multiple accounts dedicated to it on X. And attention should only grow thanks to the murals. Elder's mural shows a truck spilling its Kansas City-themed load, and another shows a series of Venus flytraps trying to snatch a winged semi out of the air, while another depicts colorful semis in an underwater theme. There are 4 of them in all created by artists local to Kansas City. The Northeast Kansas City Chamber of Commerce is hosting a mural reveal celebration on September 24th near the bridge. For more information, visit nekcchamber.com. And that's our show for today. From all of us here at Landline Now and Landline Magazine, we thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome, and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.